Okay. Have you ever looked at a beggar and thought, "What a miserable life"? What if I told you that one of those beggars once changed his entire destiny? Not by money, not by luck, but by changing the way he thought. This is not a fairy tale, not a miracle story. It's about how one man went from being ignored by thousands every day to inspiring millions. It was a cold morning in the crowded streets of Karachi. The city was alive, buses honking, vendors shouting, people rushing to work. But amidst all that noise sat a man nobody noticed anymore. Rafiq. A beggar who had spent 10 long years sitting at the same corner near a bakery, holding the same rusted tin cup, whispering the same tired plea. Kuda ki nam pi kach di do. His hands were cracked, his beard unkempt, and his eyes, though wary, still held a strange kind of light. People tossed coins without looking. Children avoided his eyes. He was part of the street now, like the old lamppost beside him. Seen, but never really noticed. Every day was the same. Until one morning, something different happened. A young man in a crisp white shirt stopped in front of him. He wasn't like the usual passers-by. His name was Amir, a 28-year-old sales executive who worked nearby. He looked at Rafiq for a moment and said, "Baba, every day I see you here. Tell me something. If I gave you 100 rupees, would your life change?" Rafiq looked up startled. "Change? Beta, what will 100 rupees change? It'll buy me tea and bread for the night, maybe." Amir smiled faintly. "Then what will change your life, Baba?" Rafiq had no answer. He lowered his gaze, embarrassed by the question. Amir quietly placed a note in his tin cup and said, "Not money, Baba. Change your mindset and life will change itself." Then he walked away. Those words echoed in Rafiq's head all day. Change your mindset, life will change. At first, he tried to laugh it off. "What does a beggar know about mindset?" he muttered. But something about the young man's calm confidence disturbed him. That night, as he sat alone under a broken streetlight, Rafiq couldn't sleep. For the first time in years, he began to think, not about food or money, but about himself. He remembered his younger days, when he had a family, a small tailoring shop, and dreams. But one wrong business deal, a fire, and the loss of his wife had broken him completely. Instead of standing up again, he had surrendered to self-pity, to failure, to hopelessness. "Maybe I didn't lose my life," he whispered to himself. "Maybe I lost my mindset." The next morning, he did something nobody expected. He stood up, literally stood up. He looked around the street where he'd been sitting for a decade and thought, "If I can still breathe, I can still try." He went to the bakery owner, Salim, who'd known him for years, and said, "Bye. Can I clean your shop or help you somehow? I don't want to beg anymore." Salim was surprised. "You, after 10 years?" "Yes," Rafiq said firmly. "I don't have money, but I have hands. Let me use them again." Reluctantly, Salim agreed, offering him small chores, sweeping the floor, washing trays, serving tea. The pay was minimal, but for Rafiq, it was everything. Each day he worked, a spark returned to his eyes. One evening, Amir passed by again and was shocked to see Rafiq standing behind the bakery counter, smiling and serving customers. Amir said, astonished, "You actually did it." Rafiq smiled. "No, you did it, beta. You gave me a thought worth more than gold." From that day, Rafiq stopped being the beggar. He became Rafiq Bai, the helper. And as he earned his first honest salary, he whispered to himself, tears in his eyes, "Change your mindset, and life really changes." Rafiq's life began to change the moment he chose not to beg. But what truly transformed him was not just work, it was the way he started to see himself. Each morning, as he arrived at Salim's bakery, he'd straighten his shoulders, look into the glass window, and whisper, I'm not a beggar anymore. I'm a man who works. It was a small affirmation, but it built something powerful inside him. Self-respect. People who had ignored him for years now began to greet him. Array, Rafiq bhai, ke chai dinner, someone would call. He'd smile, serve them tea. And think about how strange life was. How a change of thought could change people's entire perception of you. The test of faith, but life doesn't change without testing you first. One rainy night, as Rafiq closed the bakery, a man approached him with a cruel smile. It was Nadeem, another beggar who had shared the same street corner for years. So you think you're better than us now? Nadeem sneered. Washing dishes won't make you rich. You'll be back on the street soon. Rafiq didn't reply. He just smiled and said quietly, maybe not rich in money, but rich in peace. That night, Rafiq walked home drenched, but his heart was dry and steady. He realized something important. People will always doubt you, especially when you decide to rise. But the only voice that truly matters is your own. A seed of kindness. Months passed. Rafiq became a regular worker at the bakery. Selim trusted him completely, even letting him handle customers and money. One day a little boy, barefoot, clothes torn, stood outside the shop, staring at the sweets inside. The boy's name was Hassan. Rafiq recognized the look in his eyes. He had once stood just like that, hungry, not only for food, but for hope. He stepped outside and said gently, Beta, come here. What's your name? Hassan. The boy whispered, I'm just looking. I don't have money. Rafiq smiled and handed him a small bun and a cup of tea. No one ever became poor by giving, he said softly. That day, Rafiq made a promise to never let another child feel as invisible as he once did. He began keeping a small jar behind the counter labeled, For Hope. Every time someone gave him a tip, he put half of it in that jar. At the end of each week, he'd buy bread and fruit to give to street kids. Customers began noticing. Some even added money to the jar. Soon, what started as one man's quiet act of kindness became a movement in the neighborhood. The day that changed everything. A year later, the bakery celebrated its 25th anniversary. Selim decided to hold a small event for regular customers and local workers. He insisted Rafiq join him on stage. As the crowd gathered, Selim took the mic and said, Many of you know Rafiq. Some of you may remember him sitting outside this very bakery, asking for coins. But today, I want you to know who he really is. A man who taught me and many others what true change means. He turned to Rafiq. Bye. Tell them your story. Rafiq hesitated. He wasn't used to speaking in front of people. His voice trembled as he began. I spent 10 years sitting on the street, believing life had ended for me. I thought destiny had taken everything away. But one day, a stranger told me something that shook my soul. Change your mindset, and life will change. At first, I laughed at him, but that night I realized. I wasn't poor because I lacked money. I was poor because I lacked hope. The day I decided to stand up and work again, I stopped begging the world for mercy and started giving myself a chance. He paused. The crowd was silent, listening deeply. Life didn't change overnight. I fell, I doubted myself. People mocked me. But every day, I told myself, I can still try. And today, I'm not here to say I'm successful. I'm here to say I'm free. Applause erupted. Some people even had tears in their eyes. Among the crowd, Amir, the young man who had once given him those life-changing words, stood silently, smiling with pride. When the event ended, Amir approached Rafiq and hugged him tightly. You did it, Baba, he said. Rafiq laughed softly. No, we did it. You planted the seed. I just watered it every day. From beggar to teacher. Word of Rafiq's transformation spread around the area. Local NGOs and youth groups began inviting him to speak at small events, to share his story of hope and perseverance. At first, he was nervous, but soon he realized people weren't looking for perfect words. They were looking for truth. He'd stand before young people and say, "Don't wait for miracles. The biggest miracle is when you decide to believe in yourself again." He told them that life will keep throwing challenges, but how we respond defines who we become. Within 2 years, Rafiq had saved enough to rent a tiny space, his own tea stall. He named it Nai Sok Chai Wala, the tea of new thinking. Each cup of tea came with a handwritten note: "Change your mindset. Life will change." People began visiting not just for the tea, but for the hope that came with it. The full circle. One evening, Rafiq was closing his stall when a young beggar came to him, holding a tin cup, the same way he once did. "Baba Kuch Dudu," the boy said softly. Rafiq smiled, just as Amir had done years ago. He placed a warm cup of tea before the boy and said, "If I gave you money, you'd eat for a day. But if you learn to think differently, you'll eat for a lifetime." The boy looked at him, confused. Rafiq leaned forward and said, "Change your mindset, better, and life will change." And just like that, the story came full circle, one life inspiring another. Final message, the narration voice for YouTube ending. Sometimes life doesn't need a miracle. It just needs a shift in how we think. Rafiq was once invisible to the world, but when he started to believe in himself, the world began to see him again. He proved that no situation is hopeless if you refuse to give up on yourself. Because when you change your mindset, you don't just change your life. You inspire others to change theirs too. Moral of the story, your circumstances don't define you. Your mindset does. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Life changes the moment you do.